Welcome to this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast, where we look forward to shaving every day. Welcome to episode 68 of the podcast. My name is Rick DeWeese. I'll be your host this week. This week, we've got some letters. I need to give you just a quick Christmas greeting. Talk about just in case you got a new brush this Christmas, what do you do with it? Do just a quick reflection on Speik. I used the 1921 Gillette that I kind of cleaned up a little bit for the sophomore shaver. I gave it back to him. I'll tell you what happened next. Due to a couple conversations on Facebook, I went ahead, and plus I was using the old Gillette anyhow. I decided to stay in that era, and I went with my gem Damaskeene, and I'll tell you all about it. Some of the things that I've learned in the past couple of weeks here, and as well as, just taking some time. Every now and then you just got to kind of grab time by the throat and say, look, we're going to do it my way, and that's just the way it is. And finally, sometimes, I just hang around, and I'll tell you about what I did when I was just, hanging out. So, anyhow, let me get to the letters real quick, and here we go. The first one's from Brian. He says, hello, Rick. First off, love the podcast. I've been listening every week since I started wet shaving back in April. I look forward to listening to the new episode every week. I've always been a lover of straight razor shaves while I was touring on the road as a sound engineer. It was always so nice to find a real barber in a random city we pulled into and get that old-time treatment. Finally, after 10 years on the road, I've settled down over the last year here in Cincinnati and unfortunately could not find a proper barber to do a straight shave. Even the upscale Gentlemen's Club didn't do it with their signature shaves. Just a crappy Mach 3 blade with a snazzy chrome handle. The same thing I've been shaving with as I toured all around the world. So for some reason I started looking around online and I stumbled upon your podcast. I was hooked. Quickly ordered my first DE razor, a Merkur 34C, a cheap Badger brush, and I was hooked. Before I knew it, I had various soaps, DEs, even have a 59 Fat Boy, several brushes, single-edged razors. I love my Gem 1912, and now I've gotten the straight bug. My current count is now up to 9 straights. Today, I built my first kit for my friend from an old DE I didn't use that much, a nice Plisson brush and some Art of Shaving sandalwood soap. Next step for me is doing my first straight restore for my friend as a wedding gift. Boy, that was a ramble. Not really. Your show is a true inspiration. I love hearing about the scouting. I was only able to make it to life as, my life got in the way and I had to change some things. Hearing about how you try to pass on your knowledge to your scouts really has got me thinking about your adventures in your podcast recordings. Being an audio engineer, I have a vast knowledge of all things sound. If there's anything you ever need a hand with or have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Best wishes and keep the shows coming. My wife loves to bust my chops all the time about listening to your show and how I've jumped so deep into the hobby. Secretly, I'm testing the waters to see if she would take the plunge. Well, Brian, I wrote back to Brian and I said, okay, first off, thanks for the note. Great. And I also asked him who he was a sound engineer for. I haven't got a reply back, but I'm kind of curious. And secondly, when anybody offers me their insight into something, my first question is, okay, do you have any recommendations? Because I am not an expert at this. I have known for a long time in my life that there's way more ways to skin a cat than I've figured out. I figured out something that works, but it's not necessarily the best thing that works, nor is it the only thing that works. So any advice that anybody could give me, hey, I'm here, all you got to do is tell me. I may not do it, but I will definitely take it into consideration, if especially when it comes to audio, because I am a bit of an audio snob now. I don't know. It's I like things to sound, reasonable. How about that? Anyhow, Brian, it was absolutely great hearing from you. I am so happy that you have, first off, found the podcast. Secondly, got into the traditional wet shaving bug. I'm sad that you haven't been able to find anybody in the Cincinnati area. Now, speaking from a complete lack of experience, I have never had a straight razor shave from somebody else. I don't know if I could do that. I'm going to have to try to do that one day. I would walk into that with, well, just a little bit of trepidation. It's just one of those things. I don't know. It kind of strikes me. And anyhow, thank you very, very much for the letter. Now, another thing that I wanted to say, and in absolute all seriousness, is first off, I am absolutely blessed. This year, I have an episode that is going out on Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Okay, so this is the episode that's going out on Christmas. And I need to say something. And this is to all my friends out there in the wet shaving community, all my listeners. Okay? It is the holiday season, and it doesn't matter if you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, Yule, or anything else. It really doesn't matter. This is a time of year where cultures celebrate, and they celebrate all kinds of things, and they celebrate being, and they celebrate joy and existence. Now, I happen to celebrate Christmas. And I don't mean anything by it if I say Merry Christmas, other than I wish you absolute blessings in your life. For whatever religion or whatever viewpoint you happen to have, the intention is not to bring people apart. The intention is to sincerely wish you blessings. Okay. Because you have blessed me more than you will ever know, and more than I can ever possibly repay. Now, in addition to that, you've also blessed each other with fellowship, encouragement, friendship, YouTube videos, responses back and forth, Facebook groups, Facebook postings, shave of the days, Instagrams, tweets. You've really supported each other. You have created a wet shaving nation. You really have, and it is an absolutely marvelous thing. You guys have proven yourselves to be both gentle men and gentle women. And in absolutely everything that concept means. You truly have. I am extremely grateful for you guys being out there. It has been such an absolute blessing to have jumped into the waters, as it were, and been, well, welcomed. And I see that all the time with other new folks jumping in and being welcomed. So, thanks for being there, and thanks for being there for me and for each other. And I sincerely and truly, from the bottom of my heart, wish you and yours every happiness and true celebration in this season. So, Merry Christmas. So you wake up on this wonderful Christmas morning. You look under the tree, you see a package. You don't know who it's from, and it really doesn't matter. You open it up, and inside you find a brand new shaving brush. Specifically, a Boar Brush. What do you do with this thing? First off, like any good owner of a shaving brush, you sniff it. And depending on what kind of a brush you have, and who was the manufacturer of it, it may or may not have an odor. Uh-oh. Is that normal? Absolutely. It is absolutely normal. Some brushes that I have, that I've received, in fact, did have a very odor. Some that I thought, I bought a Simpson brush one time, and I would have thought that a Simpson brush would not have as much of an odor, when in fact it had more of an odor than just about any other brush that I have ever purchased. So much for a perception of, well, what I would think of would be quality would be no odor. But I digress. On the other hand, a Samak brush, I've now owned 2, and I've never had them with a very heavy odor. They did have a slight odor, but not a very heavy odor. So, what do you do with this? First off, if it is a badger brush, the performance that you get out of the box of a badger brush is probably pretty close to the performance that you will have throughout the life of the brush. On the other hand, a boar brush will enhance itself over time as it breaks in. And by breaking in, what essentially happens is the tips of the boar bristles themselves over time and with use split. And as they split, they provide an exceedingly soft feel. And that's one of the nice things about a boar brush, is that you get a soft feel with the backbone of the bigger, thicker fibers in the bristles that basically gives you the best of both worlds. A stiff brush for backbone for face lathering or for hard soaps or things like that, with the softness right on the face due to the very fine fibers after the boar bristles have split. So how do you accomplish this? Well, I can tell you what I've done. Boar over time with use will split. And the way that it splits, or the reason that it splits, is that as the boar hair absorbs moisture, absorbs water when you soak it, it then, as it dries out, splits. Now, in my case, what I did is I actually, enhanced that process. Every morning I would wake up, and whether I was using that particular boar brush or not, I would soak it. And then I would shake the water out and let it dry. And from time to time, I would test lather with it. And between the function of soaking it and drying it and test lathering it and essentially using it, whether I used it to lather my face or not, or if I was just lathering in a bowl, didn't really matter. Over the course of about 2 weeks, it broke in. And it broke in wonderfully. Now, this is not very different from what I do with brushes that I receive or that I get that have a slight odor to them. I will also, again, soak them. Soaking a brush, a natural fiber brush, is instrumental in keeping the brush in top condition, because the soaking of the brush and allowing those fibers to become moistened allows them to also become more flexible, which reduces breakage. And one of the things that will reduce the life of a brush quickly is to, break the fibers out of it. And the way to avoid that is, in fact, to soak it. Now, if you have a brush that needs to, be defunked, if you will, there's a couple of things that I've done. I have used mild shampoos, the kind, for example, Johnson's Baby Shampoo or something like that. But I have found that the best way to do this is to find a shaving soap that I really, really enjoy the scent of. Whether that be Cella or Cavendish or something like that, that has a very nice fragrance. And then what I'll do is I'll lather the brush up and let it sit. And I may let it sit for 4 hours. And then I'll rinse it off and lather it up again and let it sit. And what happens is the fragrances will kind of pull the, funk out of the brush at the same time and, kind of substitute their own fragrances. And so you get a mild mix and it's a little bit more, tolerable. And then, like I said, over time, then you take the brush, especially a boar brush, and as you use it, it will break in and break in nicely. The big key here is that, especially with a boar brush, if you get a boar brush and you use it that first time or that second time, and it doesn't feel quite as soft, it doesn't act the way you think it should, don't despair, don't get rid of it. keep playing around with it, eventually it will break in and usually become a very, very nice brush. I know that my two Samags, I've got an 830 and a 1305, are probably my favorites. Other than the Plisson, they are really my go-tos. I prefer those over my Badger brushes, to be quite honest. I will pick up a Badger brush from time to time just to, well, play with it. But quite honestly, those two are my daily drivers, and those are the ones that I grab constantly. And mainly the one that I grab is the 1305, again, because of the handle. I just prefer the handle shape. But that is, those are my preferences. So if you do happen to get a brush this Christmas, enjoy it. Enjoy it over a period of time before you decide whether or not you like it or not. Now, I do have one brush that I got around this time last year. I need to sell that more than likely because I haven't picked it up in about a year. It's a short little thing. It's scrubby. It's just, and it was a Simpson brush, and it stunk to high heaven when I got it. It took a while. It took probably 3 days to get the funk out of it, of, lathering it up, letting it sit for a while, rinsing it off, letting it dry, doing it again. I think I did that 3 or 4 times before the funk finally got out of it. But it was one of those things where it's a learning experience. And so if you do happen to have a brush, again, congratulations. Hopefully you will enjoy it, and hopefully you will stick with it to learn just how good a brush can be. Also, just to try it out to see if it wasn't a fluke, the other thing that I did was I tested my Speik shave stick again, and yeah, it still sticks a little bit, and it's just a little dry, and I mean, it worked great, don't get me wrong. It worked fabulously. Speik always does. I am so impressed with Speik. It's economical, it's a good product, it's one of my go-tos. Now, personally, okay, the shave sticks are nice. I enjoy the shave sticks. They're great for traveling, if you have limited space. But for me, I really, really like the creams, especially the Speik cream. That's just, oh gosh, that's just marvelous stuff. Smells good, good skin feel. It's just, I go on. I mean, it's just, it's a personal preference, when it comes to some of the creams that I have. I would much rather have Speik than, say, The Art of Shaving or Trumpers. Trumpers, I don't know. The only one that I had that was a cream was the lime, and I don't know if it was the lime essential oil or if it was the soap itself, but I had reactions to that stuff. I've never had a reaction to Speik. It's gentle. It's, at least for me, does a great job. So I took the 1921 Gillette that I had worked on and cleaned up a couple of podcasts ago that the sophomore shaver had given me originally. And he had given it to me because it was way too aggressive for him. So I took it home, tried it out, had a theory, cleaned it up. I believe my theory was in fact correct, in that at this point, I think it was the plating. The plating was coming off, and once I got the old plating out and down and, smooth things up and made things kind of buttery soft again as far as the surface feel, the blade could actually sit down onto the in the head the way it was supposed to, on the, against the cap and everything else, and it was back to shaving the way, well, that it was originally intended. And so I used it for 3-4 days, I think it was, and really enjoyed it. And at the time, it was the oldest Gillette that I had ever used. Now, of course, now I'm going to have to be on the market for one because I gave it back to the sophomore shaver. He used it last night and thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, granted, I'm happy for him, but I'm sad at the same time because I told him, I said, if it's too aggressive for you still, give it back to me. I'll give it a good home. Guess I won't be seeing that one. But that's okay. I'm glad. I know it's in a better place. It is with somebody who is also a dedicated wet shaver. So, from that aspect, not a problem. It's just a personal loss. I work so hard. It's great. But, he used it last night, and he put up on Twitter and Facebook that he had used it last night, and it worked really well. And I asked him, I said, well, is it less aggressive than what you had remembered? And then he said, yeah, a lot less. So, I think my theory was right. So if you have a blade that's, or if you have a razor rather that is an older razor that may have some plating loss and things like that, take a look at where the blade actually sits if you're having difficulties with it from an aggressive standpoint. If you have stuff keeping the blade from sitting properly, your blade gap is larger maybe than it should be, and that could cause, some aggressiveness. So since yesterday I shaved with the 1921 Gillette, I turned around and shaved with my gem Damaskeene this morning, just to kind of go back to the 1920s and teens era single-edged razors, double-edged razors, vintage era of razors that I have and do thoroughly enjoy. Of course, the Damaskeene, there's part of me that quite honestly wonders why did we ever get away from Damaskeene? I'm sorry. It's one of those things where if that had come along, and if it wasn't for the fact of patents and companies trying to make money and stay in business and not have copycats and things like that, I'm sorry. We should have just stuck, in my opinion, we should have stuck with the single-edge Damaskeene. It's just, oh my gosh, that's a fabulous razor. Easy, gentle, beautiful shaves. I am as close with the Damaskeene as I was with the slant and the shark blade. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what blade are you using? You're obviously using a better blade. I'm using a carbon steel PAL single-edged blade that has been, I think I've used it twice, and it has been sitting on my shelf, because I take them out of the razor and I dry them off after every use, and then I sit them up on my shelf on a couple of sample bottles so that the blade gets exposure to air so that it can completely dry off and stay dry. And that blade has been sitting on my shelf for probably 3 weeks at this point since the last time I used it, and it was a fabulous shave. And so, I have to wonder how many of the old timers, took the razor blades, the single edged blades, and actually lovingly cared for them, or how many just bought the dang thing, stuck them in the razors, let them sit there for weeks at a time, rusting up and carrying on, threw the razor out and bought a new one. I know there was guys in the 60s and 70s that did that because they didn't know how to deal with carbon steel because everything was stainless at that time, or some type of steel or a coating or something that didn't rust up. And so I remember just hints of hearing people being annoyed that their razor blade was rusting in their razor. And so I'm looking at it thinking, well, okay, I can do it. It's not that difficult. It's just an extra step. It's kind of like a straight razor. You dry it off, you set it out so that it can get air, and you don't destroy the edge in the process. So just a quick reflection, and again, the Damaskeene did a fabulous job this morning. Wonderful as always. It really is amazing that you have shaving technology that is able to perform at that level from 100 years ago. It really is, to a certain extent, mind-boggling. Now, at the same time, you've got the straight razors that are even older than that. I know that, but when you look at the single-edged blade and the razor and the handle and the whole concept and everything, it's still going as well today as it was 100 years ago, and it reminds me that these salesmen who are trying to sell you the latest and greatest are not necessarily trying to sell you something because it will give you a better shave. It'll just put money in their pockets. Because I can get as good a shave in a couple passes, because that's all this one was 2 passes, quick touch up on the neck and chin areas, and, boom, done. It's almost, it's right there next to BBS. It really is. And I'm thinking, I doubt very seriously with, 5 blades and a plastic cartridge with a rotating, pivoting head that I could do the same thing in 2 passes, or at least I could, but it should be way more expensive. Yeah. Today was an interesting day. Today, for all practical purposes, is the last day of work, for the year. So I'm going to take a couple weeks of vacation and just enjoy the holidays, visit some relatives, and just generally, relax. And it's been one of those years where it's just been kind of nonstop. It's just been, full of activity and, stress and stuff. So today, I took the time. It's not like, I had a little extra time. No, I took the time for a straight razor shave. I went the old spice type route. I used Wickham Spice Trade. Wickham Super Smooth Spice Trade. Again, love the scent of that stuff. And I used some original Shulton formula from India that I had picked up way back when from West Coast Shaving. Used that as an aftershave. And I used my Newton & Sons straight razor and 830 brush to lather everything up in a modified salsa bowl. And I had an excellent 2-pass and a touch-up straight razor shave. Really, really good stuff. It's kind of made me realize, work is work. I understand that, and it's nice to have a job, but every now and then you just kind of got to go, wait a minute, time out. There's potentially more important things than working all the time, and quite honestly, taking a moment or two to do something that is just generally relaxing and just kind of turning off and saying, you know what, today, even though I have to go in, I'm not going to be as stressed. I'm going to take the time. I'm not going to get wrapped around the handle about, any of it. Just any of it. And, that mindset is sometimes missing in our day-to-day routines. That mindset is something that is probably very healthy when you consider the fact that sometimes we get so worked up and wrapped up in what we're doing that we call work or jobs or whatever, that it affects our health, it affects our ability to see our kids, see our families, whatever. Sometimes you just got to literally say, okay, enough. I'm done. It's okay. And today's one of those days. So that's the quick report this morning. The other thing that I noticed is that while I was recording, I was kind of stopping if I'd gone over a bump, and I would repeat myself. And what when I listened to it back, I couldn't tell the difference really in audio quality for going over the bump. Well, which was curious. I hadn't anticipated that. I hadn't anticipated, having some kind of residual noise, having some kind of, thumping or bumping noise or hearing things rattle in the truck, and it just didn't occur. And it struck me as, well, it was one of those duh moments, because this same type of headset microphone is used by aerobics instructors and things of that nature. And, they're bouncing around a good bit and carrying on, and they don't have any bumps, noises, or anything else. So, that makes sense. But it was one of those things, again, not necessarily anticipated. All right, don't forget that if you would like to support the Brush and Soap and Blade podcast, we currently have something going on. It is the 2015 Brush and Soap and Blade podcast brush, made by none other than Nathan Clark. A portion of the proceeds go to support the podcast. This thing is made up of a mixture of Osage orange and black resin, an absolutely beautiful brush. You've got two knot choices. You can either get the 2-band high mountain white or synthetic. These are 24 millimeter knots with a 50 millimeter loft. We have until January 31st to get our orders in. Now, I know that everybody is probably taking a big sigh of relief that Christmas is done and presents have been ordered or gotten and things have settled down. Well, if you didn't get a brush for Christmas and you would like an absolutely outstanding brush made by Nathan Clark, you have until January 31st to order one. They will ship on February 25th. And if you use the code BSB2015 at the checkout, you can get this brush for $69.95. So $70 for a Nathan Clark brush in either 2-band high mountain white or a synthetic. And so if you'd like to support the podcast and support an artisan brush maker at the same time who does an absolutely fantastic job, most of his brushes usually sell for $80 to $90. So if you'd like to get a good deal on a brush, get your hands on one just to try it out, this is a good way to go about doing it. So if you didn't get that brush for Christmas, this may be an opportunity that you would like to partake of. So there will be a link in the show notes, and that'll take you over to the site where you can order the 2015 Brush and Soap and Blade podcast brush, or you can see the other brushes that Nathan makes, and I'm sure you will be impressed. So as always, thank you very much for any support that you happen to give. Okay, so what did I want to talk about? First off, I'm on my way to the barber shop because, well, it's been a while, and with everything else going on, well, I'm in need of a haircut. Anyhow, so I am off to the barber shop. Now, what I wanted to talk about in this segment was one of my new axes. Okay, so I bought an axe head on eBay. Now, it is a double bit axe head, and it is gorgeous. It is a Collins. It is absolutely beautiful. It's about, it's almost a foot wide, or a foot long rather, and probably 5-6 inches wide. I mean, it's sweeping up at both ends. It's gorgeous. It really is. To me, I mean, I look at that and I go, now that is a double bit axe. Now don't get me wrong. I dearly love my Sager Chemical double bit axe. I mean, it is a fantastic axe. But I had always wanted one in this pattern, and I saw it on eBay, and I went ahead and bought it. Now, the problem is the axe head that I bought is just that. It is an axe head without a handle. Uh-oh. Now we have to go and get a handle. Okay, so off to the internet I go to search, and what I ended up doing is finding the company that actually makes axe handles for the U.S. Forest Service. I figured, well, if the Forest Service uses them, they're probably reasonable. Now, the reason that I did that is because the axe handle that I bought for my Sager, it was okay. It really was, but the grain pattern is, well, in the wrong direction. Oops. And it was the only one that they had, and I really wanted to hang the axe, so I went and bought that one locally, and I said, well, okay, it's not the right grain pattern. It'll eventually snap. I know that. And I'm willing to risk that to have a handle on this axe right now. Well, since I already have a double bit axe, since I already have a couple other axes, I went onto the internet to search for axe handle companies. Now, you would think, well, surely somebody knows what they're doing here. And in fact, what I did is I found a company that makes handles for all wooden handles for all kinds of tools. And I found out one of the places that buys them, because they don't apparently sell to the public. And so I went through a second party, and I got an absolutely gorgeous axe handle. So the axe handle that I ended up getting was from the Beaver Tooth Handle Company. The double-bitted axe handle that I ended up buying was a 36-inch long double-bit axe handle from the Beaver Tooth Handle Company, and it cost me a whopping $16.95. Okay, now, I had never bought a handle from these guys, so I figured, well, 16, 17 bucks, I'll give it a shot. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, so then I wait with bated breath as the axe handle arrives in shipping, and you know, it takes a couple days, believe it or not, all the way from North Carolina. And but eventually I get my axe handle. Now, I take a look at my axe handle. While the grain direction is not absolutely perfect, it's pretty close. I mean, it really is. You look at it and you go, wow, that's pretty close. Now, the other thing that's nice is that the axe handle is not painted. It's not varnished. It's nothing, okay? It is just wood. It is beautiful. It is absolutely gorgeous. Everything I ever wanted in a handle. It's got 2 stickers on it, one on the one side, one on the other. They come off easily. Life is good. Okay? So far, so good. Now, I then take it out to the garage and retrieve my axe head and think, okay, what do I need to do to fit this thing? And I walk over there and I go to lay the axe head on there because, you know, so I can mark it off. I've got a sharpened pencil. I am ready to go so that I can take the axe handle down at the head area so that I get a very nice, snug fit around the axe head. And lo and behold, what do I find? But it's almost as if that axe head is custom built for that axe. It slides on beautifully with just a couple of small spots where it's a little tight, but for the most part, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Okay, so now go ahead and take the axe head back off. Take a little boiled linseed oil, put it down in the slot for the wedge, and then proceed to hang the axe. Now, when you hang an axe, you stick the axe head on the handle, and it should go part way, but maybe not all of the way. Turn it upside down so that the axe head is hanging downward, and strike the butt of the handle with something. A mallet, a piece of wood or something, and the inertia will actually drive the axe head up. And hopefully it drives the axe head up so that it shoulders properly. Now, when it shoulders properly, what happens is it wedges into the wood handle so tightly that it actually takes some wood fibers and kind of curls them up around the bottom of the axe. and that ensures you that you are well seated on that handle. So off we go to hang my axe and get it to shoulder nicely, and I'm using I think it's a 3-pound or maybe even a 4-pound no-bounce mallet, big, broad head on this thing. Now, when I hung the my Sager chemical axe, again, remember, the grain is not going in the correct direction, and down there at the wide part, at the bottom, the swell, at the bottom of the axe handle, I actually busted a piece off. And talk about annoyed. I mean, it's like, dang it, it's just annoying. Now, the good news is that I say good news. The bad news is that the grain is almost exactly perpendicular to the axe blade itself. So it is, 180 degrees, well, at least 90 degrees wrong from where it's supposed to be. And so when the chunk broke off of the swell, it broke off on one side. It turns out that side is my thick cutting side, the side that you would use to knock through knots and things like that, whereas the other side is the fine side. And so, quite honestly, to a certain extent, it's handy. Granted, it's not quite what I want, but it's handy because I can very easily and quickly determine which side of the axe I am striking with, which is a good thing. Keeps me out of trouble. So I shoulder the axe, the new Collins axe, and it shoulders magnificently. I mean, it is beautiful. There is a nice even curl all the way around. I mean, I couldn't have done better if somebody was betting me that I couldn't do it. It was absolutely perfect. I then throw a little bit of boiled linseed oil on the wedge and proceed to pound the wedge home. When I get it to the point where it is about as tight as I can get it and it is not going any further, it then, and I'd put a little boiled linseed oil all over the thing to kind of moisten the area and give a little hydration to the axe and everything, and let it seat well. And so, I mean, that's just one of the things I did before I hung the axe. And then I let it sit there for a little while, and then I cut off the handle with probably about a quarter-inch, maybe a little bit more than that, but about a quarter-inch above the axe head. And then I proceeded to ensure that the handle was finished, if you will, with boiled linseed oil to give it a little bit of, keep it from checking or eluding the dryness or anything like that. Keep the wood in good shape. And then I proceeded to work on sharpening my axe. And, of course, I'm still working on sharpening my axe, and I will probably be working on sharpening my axe for a while because, well, as you know, sharpening is, well, one of the things that I don't do real well. I'm adequate at it, but by no means fast or speedy or, those kind of things. So that's where I am with my Collins axe. It is beautiful. The handle is gorgeous. I'm here to tell you, if I ever buy another handle, it's coming from the Beaver Tooth Handle Company because the handle quality, in my estimation, compared to what I could get anywhere else, is just, well, it's gorgeous. It really is. Compared to the things you get at Home Depot or Lowe's or something like that, I mean, they're a joke compared to this thing. This thing is truly a well-made handle. Good swell at the bottom. I mean, you could tell that they started out with a decently sized piece of wood, not some little piddly, thing. So, all in all, I am very, very impressed. It's been, well, it was actually fun. It really was. It was actually fun to bring the old axe to life. It's just one of those things that, every now and then you go, man, it worked out good, and I got a beautiful axe in the process, and cost me less than if I'd have bought it, brand new. The steel is easily as good as, say, a Wetterlings or a Grand Force Brooks. I mean, being an old Collins, you're talking, 1940s Collins or something like that, it's probably just as good as steel. And one of those axes will cost you $180, $200. I don't have but $70 in the thing. I mean, that's a good deal. I like that. I like it when a plan comes together and you stand back when it's all said and done and you go, man, that worked. That worked well. I should do that again. Oh, anyhow, I just wanted to let you know that life is good in the realm of sharp objects, otherwise known as axes and knives and things like that. So, it's. I don't know if you guys have an interest in axes or knives or tomahawks or hatchets or other sharp objects, but I find I do. It's sharp objects, metal objects, firearms. I mean, it's just, it's all good. It's just good stuff. It's amazing, the absolute works of art, even though they be simple. Sometimes the simple designs are the ones that are, the most elegant. It's, it's almost like a straight razor. Yeah, it's nice to have one that's, embellished in gold and just beautiful and got gold lettering or something like that. But every now and then you just look at one that is just well balanced, well made, and you just look at it and go, wow, it's just made for one job and one job only, and it is the epitome of an artisan's talent to be able to make something for that one specific job. And in those situations when I find things like that, I am more than happy to put it to the use for which it was intended. Well, hopefully you are having an excellent holiday season. I know I am. I've got a couple of things, not necessarily shave-related, but podcast-related, and to a certain extent, they will help me out in the podcast. I'm speaking right now on one of them, which is my new Shure headphone microphone, and this allows me to do segments, if you will, for the podcast in the truck as I'm driving to work and as I'm coming home. And it really is nice because it gives me something to do. I'd much rather do this than listen to the radio because, oh my gosh, the radio can be so depressing. I mean, it's just, you're either listening to music, and typically the music quality is, not what it used to be. And I mean, some of it's all right. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy listening to music, but some of it's okay. And I have a tendency to listen to country western music, and I enjoy it. And I don't know. Sometimes the wording, the way it's sung, the things that it portrays, it's just a downer. The attitudes toward other people, I mean, it's just a downer. I'm sorry. It's just, I don't know. And, of course, I can't listen to the news. Oh, my God. If I listen to the news, I would be so pissed off all the time, every single day, every minute of the day. It's incredible the amount of garbage that is spewed on the radio waves, and they call it news. And then, of course, in between the music and the news, you get the commercials, which, again, I'd rather not. It's just too much effort. And so I'd much rather talk. I'd much rather talk about things that are of interest, to me. And so that's one of my presents is this microphone. And the other present is my wife got it for me, and we spent a little bit more on Christmas this year than we normally do, and I got her something very, very nice, and I'm getting a laptop, and it happens to be an Apple product, and I'm looking forward to that. She, of course, won't let me have it until Christmas, which means I'll be doing, playing around with that thing all day long. And then she'll complain that I'm not associating with the family because I'm head deep in the laptop and blah, blah. I'm just, oh God, it's going to be terrible. I can see it coming. It's like you're standing on the tracks. You can see the headlight of the freight train, and it's a mile off, and you know it's headed your way because it's the bright light, not the red light. Oh, goodness. Well, that concludes this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you have some suggestions or would like a topic covered, drop me an email at BrushnSoapnBlade@gmail.com or give me a call at 864-372-6234 or contact us on Twitter at Brush and Blade. You can also visit us at our blog, BrushnSoapnBlade.wordpress.com. As always, we're available on iTunes and Stitcher.